So online ESOL resources that are engaging and easy to use. These are my favorites. ELO, lyrics training, Flipgrid. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with Flipgrid. I'm still figuring that one out. And then I couldn't find an icon for the other one I'm going to talk about, Games to Learn English, and that'll be towards the end. But before I begin, I saw this YouTube video a while ago, and it really
Он идет опять
resonated.
наверх, не надо, блядь, делать это, он идет наверх, ушел.
It really resonated with me. So I thought this would be a good way to start us off.
Next week, I'm going to be teaching my students online. So I'm going to need one of these, a really big LMS.
The audio is a little low, Catherine.
And then I'm going to teach them face-to-face as well. So I'm going to need something like Zoom or Skype, or maybe something like MS Teams. Oh, and then I went to a conference and I heard that there's things called Padlet and Mentimeter and Quizlet, which are really cool and make the lessons much more interesting. And lots of my students are into YouTube, so I'm probably going to start a YouTube channel and get a video camera and a microphone, and then probably a new mobile phones capable with social media like Facebook, or maybe not Facebook, that's all TikTok maybe.
Yes.
And then I'm going to need a new laptop to go with it all. Oh, shiny. Next week, when you're teaching your students online, start with your students, work out what your learning aims are, and then decide what's coming next. Maybe you just need one of these, and possibly one of these. Oh, but I do like the shiny ones.
Sorry, was the audio not good on that?
The audio was a little low, but I think we can get the gist of what he was suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like, okay, that was me a year ago. I felt so totally like I was grabbing at so many different things. I don't know if other people felt the same. There just seemed like there were thousands of things online that we could be using. And a year later, I don't know if you agree, but I've sort of come to the conclusion that we're what matters, showing up every day in the classroom. We're the ones that people are coming to see and engage with. And if we can be engaging and show up every day, the tools are going to help that, but that's not what it's all about. So as I said, these are the 4 that I've settled on and that I've had success with. But honestly, not every app sticks with every class. I think it's also dependent on the makeup of the class and the students. So from session to session, we've had sort of up and down, winners and losers with some of these things. So I won't promise you that they'll always work, but experimenting with them, you might find that 1 or 2 of them really resonate with your learners. So my objectives for the workshop are pretty simple. I just want to demonstrate some of my favorite applications and web pages for synchronous and asynchronous use with your students. And the 4 that I've mentioned, ELO, lyrics training, Flipgrid, and Games to Learn English. I really like these because I'm a huge fan of listening activities. I really feel that they're overlooked a lot in some of our ESL classes. And to me, it's so directly related to speaking and ultimately to reading when students are able to listen to pronunciation and then pronounce correctly as they're reading. It's just so intertwined. So that's why you'll find these, at least the first 3 are pretty listening focused. I just wanted to also share this quote that I found from Penny Ur, the great Penny Ur. She mentions that understanding intonation and stress, coping with redundancy and noise, predicting, understanding colloquial vocabulary, and understanding different accents improve the chances of obtaining correct information from a message. And when I read that, I thought that's exactly why I love this first tool that I'm going to share with you. ELO. Are people using ELO? You can just write in the chat if that's something you're familiar with. Don't be shy. I'd love to know if people are using Yellow.
So far, no.
Oh, all right. Then I hope you're in for a treat. It's English Listening Lesson Library Online. It's a free resource. All of these actually that I'm going to show you offers great opportunities for listening, grammar, and vocabulary building, for synchronous and asynchronous use, and wonderful opportunities, I think, for expansion activities related to speaking and writing. I'm going to go to the page now. This is where the screen share, we'll see if I can manage this. So can you see this now? Yep. Okay. It's a very basic website. Very easy to navigate. This is what you arrive at the main page. And I'm going to just quickly show you something that I love. The mixers. Now, because it's free, there's ads. You just click on that. The mixers, I think, are probably my favorite because the mixers are English language learners responding to a question. So your learners get to listen to between 5 and 7 speakers answering a question. So you've got Diego from Mexico, you've got Belgium, Lithuania, Indonesia, you've got the multiple Englishes, which I think is just phenomenal for our students to hear. Many different people speaking English. I'm going to just jump ahead for a minute and come back to show you what this looks like. I'm going to go back to the presentation because I want to just tell you why I love this. And then I'll show you. Students can listen to a variety of accents. There are multiple levels available for really beginners to fairly high advanced students. It's wonderful for assigned tasks, or if you have really motivated students, it's wonderful for self-study. And I'll show you why. It's also mobile friendly because I think the other lesson of this year for me is that the majority of my students are accessing my classes through a mobile phone. So I've made sure that all of these 4 websites and applications are very mobile friendly. It's no fun to try to do something that just makes you frustrated when you're doing it on a phone. The other thing I love about this is that your students can listen to the audio and read the script. You can tell them not to if you want them to just listen, but I love the combination at some point in the teaching of them reading the script along with the listening. And each audio, the majority of the audios, have a grammar point or vocabulary or phrasal verbs that they want to illustrate. And there is a quiz. So for learner autonomy, if they want to take this website and run with it and do a lot of the listening activities on their own, they can. There are some built-in features that they can do independently. So let me actually show you what this looks like. We'll go back to the page. And again, any questions, just shout them out. I want to just walk you through one I use in every session with my students. It's in the grammar. So I don't know if a lot of people are using Side by Side. That's the textbook that New Community uses. And in Side by Side 2, the students are introduced to the modal should, and I think it's unit 4. And what I often do is I ask the students to, for the modal should, to talk about where I should visit if I were to have the opportunity to visit their home country or their home city. And then as we move on to unit 5 and we look at comparatives, what I ask them to do is to take what they've talked about with their where should I go in your home country And I asked them if they would compare a place that they know in their home country with the place here. And after they've done that, either in writing or we've had a discussion, I then have them listen to the LO audio, which is two people talking about, I think it's San Francisco and Los Angeles. And it's a wonderful conversation between Amy from Scotland and Todd from California. I have the students, depending on the class, sometimes it's for homework, sometimes we do it in class, listen to this audio. And then what we do is we do a comparison between the kinds of language they've used to talk about comparing their home country with, they often say New York or Newark, and the language used by Todd and Amy in this audio. So it's a wonderful way for students to see. Yeah. Did somebody have a question?
No, I think somebody's just unmuted.
Okay. So it's a wonderful tool for recognition of language, right? Drawing students' attention to what they have created in their first comparative activity to this, and then you can run with that. I've had great success with students doing that, and then we're really fortunate because Unit 6 is superlatives. So when we finished with our comparatives, we then move on to the superlatives, where I do the same thing. I say, can you describe your favorite place using superlatives? The students present the work, and then I have them listen to Todd talking about San Francisco, the best and the worst. And we can do the same thing, is we can then compare what they have produced first with what they're now seeing in this conversation between Sarah and Todd, two Americans. The audios are typically between 2 and 3 minutes, not too long. And as I said, there's this accompanying script. If they're doing independent study, there is the grammar, explanations, and when they're ready, they can take the quiz. Sometimes students will screenshot me the results of their quiz if it's assigned as homework. That is just a quick rundown, I hope not too quick, of 2 of the audios that I use with regularity with my students. I'm just going to pause here and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, any folks with questions about LO? Yeah, Hope has a question or a thought.
Do the students have to subscribe and you have to subscribe, or how do you assign it?
No, there is no subscription for this. It's an open resource. And what I do typically, Hope, is I'll assign it in the Google Classroom, and I will just copy the link. And from the Google Classroom, they can click on the link and it goes right to that specific audio.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any others?
Yes, people are always excited when there's no subscription and no none of these firewalls or paywalls or these types of things.
Well, and I try to keep that really front and center when I'm looking at things for students to do, because the next thing I show you has too many ads, but I think that's the price we have to pay for not having to hand over every bit of information. So like the workshop we had this morning, trying to avoid that. Any other questions?
Now, the other thing I say is that you can also, and maybe you're going to talk about this later, but you can do your own LO pretty easily, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I do that with my own students. And I'll talk about this in my session tomorrow. This is kind of a pitch for my session tomorrow, but we do a weekly chapter of a story, and I record it and I upload it. And so they can read the story, hear me, reading it out loud for the pronunciation. And I just have it on a Google Doc, and so it's pretty easy to set up your own kind of website with these types of resources.
Absolutely. And that's a great thing to do. And that's sort of one of the other activities I ask them possibly to do, depending on the students in further activities. So to recap from that specific audio about comparatives, for some asynchronous work, you could assign specific tasks, find the comparatives in the audio, find them in the script. These are just some of the ones that were in that audio. I've often had students come to class the next day and say, there were a whole bunch of words I didn't know, teacher. So that's the other thing, ask them to find some new vocabulary and look it up. These were a few in that comparative audio that I thought students, I predicted they would look up, and many of them did. Another thing we can do is I can assign a writing activity where they can compare the cities or towns that they know. And like you were just saying, Eric, I will often ask them to then make an audio of themselves, recounting that writing activity, and submit that to me, either by Google Classroom, or my students often like to use WhatsApp to send me audio. I have a lot of students from the Dominican Republic this session, so there was a lot of comparisons between the beaches of the Dominican Republic and New York City, or the beaches of New Jersey. There was no comparison, according to the students. And then some of the other things I've done synchronously in class with that audio is to have the students read the conversation in pairs or as a group. And even better, I think, ask the students to work in pairs to create their own dialogue and present it to classmates. So, there's a lot of coaching and then presentation. And I think ELO is a good resource, especially if you don't have the time to create them. There's a lot of really good stuff there. There are thousands, literally thousands of audios uploaded on ELO for you to explore.
And as you were saying earlier, Catherine, many of our students engage with smartphones, right? And smartphones come with recorders, right? So they can use their phone to record themselves and record other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another thing. I'll often have my students do a presentation at the end of the session, and many of them, having already built on this story for a few lessons, will then use it as part of their final presentation. They can work on it over the course of many weeks, and in the end, on the last day of school, they can present a Google presentation that has incorporated a lot of the stuff they've done over the term, if they choose to make a presentation about their home country or their hometown. So that's a final sort of synchronous assigned writing activity that also then becomes a speaking activity as they narrate this presentation. I'm ready to move on to music but I will pause one more time just to ask if there's any further questions on ELO, or if I should just move ahead. Okay, all right. So a lot of my students really love music. And I was introduced to this website from a professor at the New School last March, who was doing a lot of research on listening activities. And I will be honest and say that I'm still trying to maximize my use of this site. I think I can do more with it. Has also, quick survey, has anybody used lyrics training? Just write it in the chat. No, Maureen and Hope are saying, that's who I see on my screen. So you'll be I'll judge based on you.
Nope, nope, nope.
Nope, nope, no. Okay. Well, it's another great activity for listening grammar and building vocabulary with synchronous and asynchronous expansion activities, speaking and writing as well. Let's take a look at lyrics training. Okay, so this is the one that I said it often has too many ads. So you do have to log into this one. I don't have Facebook, so I just made a regular login. It has so many different genres. So if you are into soul music, or your students are into soul, you could do some songs in that area. If you want some disco, so you can look up by genre. Or if you know, I'm sure a lot of you already use a lot of songs for highlighting different pronunciation, the ED ending for the simple past. So you can search a song, or if you have one in mind specifically. I am just going to, these are the top ones these days. This is what I guess a lot of teachers are using these days. I have started to make my own, which I think is a really cool feature because, you know, I was doing closes for so many years. This site incorporates the video and the lyrics, and you get to decide what you're going to omit. So let me show you what. So this is my account. I've got some exercises. I have created a few, and this is the one that, so this is how it appears. The students get the link. So again, I just include the link in the Google Classroom, and then they sign in and they go to the activity. I'm going to actually show you what the game looks like. There's a write mode and a choice mode. I always tell my students to use the choice mode. The write is too difficult. So you click choice, and I hope the audio works here. Okay. Unfortunately, there is an ad before some of these, so I will just mute that until we get going. All right. So the words that the students are listening for come up here on the side.
Yeah, it's really quiet, but
I'm sorry, it's on maximum on my computer, but that gives you a sense. So the video starts, the music plays. In the choice mode, these are some of the words that have been omitted from the song. The little spinning wheel is what the students have to listen for. All right, so they're listening. They can click if they make a mistake, the video stops, and then they go back and they can do it again. If they are listening and they don't make a choice, again, the video slows right down and they can go back and start it up again. And that keeps happening until they get the correct answer. In the write mode, which is not easy to do on a phone, you have to type in the word. So again, being mobile friendly, I think the choice option is better. And let me show you how I made this, which I think is, let's go back. So this is how you would make your own. It's essentially a close. You've got the song, the video, and there are the lyrics. And you decide what you want the students to listen for. So my students do this at the very end when we're doing a review of the simple past. And there are a ton of irregular simple past verbs in this song. So I have just, anything in blue is what I've taken out of the song and what they have to listen for. And that's only the first thing. That's just the listening activity, right? There's so many things you can do with this song after you've just done this one listening or prior to doing this listening activity. It's pretty easy to use. And like I said, though, I'm still figuring it out and hoping to use it more and more. I've had huge success with this with a more advanced class that I'm teaching at the Montclair Public Library. That group has really loved doing this kind of stuff and are starting to do it on their own.
so Catherine, can you possibly optimize the sound in your Zoom settings? So Mike was saying possibly depending upon the operating system you're using, under the share screen, there would be a share computer sound option under there.
Okay.
If I may, Eric, at the top of her screen, there should be a share screen bar with options like annotate. On the far right, there's 3 dots that says more, and you get a drop down menu.
Yep, I see it. You want me to optimize for video clip?
Well, it should say share computer audio
Share computer
or
audio.
share
Share
computer
sound. Share
sound.
sound. Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thanks,
Yep.
Eric.
And there was a question about, is this appropriate for level 2 students?
Yeah, well, because I think that you can pick the song, right? Some songs are easier than others. You know, like I said, I do this Adele song at the very end, but one of the other songs we do, which is really easy, is Taylor Swift's Love Story. You know, they've got the storytelling happening in the video. Use that for the ing. I want them listening for that. So you can really pick what you want your students to listen for. And you don't have to block out as many words, right? You could block out 10 words in a song, or you could block out 35, depending on your level of student and what you want them to listen for. There are also just random songs, and that is what your students could do for self-study. You know, if we go back to the main page, these are all just random, 29 random words. I tend to only focus on the beginner stuff. I've tried some of the expert and it's really hard. So I avoid it. And I tell all my students of every level, stick to beginner, because I think that's enough of a challenge.
Hope we're saying it reminds her a little bit of Mad Libs, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like a song-based Mad Libs.
Right. Yeah. And I think that if you have students, particularly, I think I heard earlier today, a lot of people were saying they're teaching teenagers at some of their schools. I think this would be amazing for teenagers, especially because they're also very adept at technology and they could really run with this. Some of my older students sometimes have some trouble, but we just work through it together. So why I love it, they can listen to an assigned song, or they can do some self-study, and you're promoting learner autonomy. The webpage and app both work well. There are 4 levels of difficulty. Like I said, stick to beginner, the multiple choice or writing option. And again, I recommend sticking with the choice if your students are not on computers. The writing would be just too complicated. And you can create your own assignment, or they can do a random one. Some asynchronous expansion stuff. Ask your students for feedback on the song, just like, did you like it or not, right? Have a discussion about that. My dream, it hasn't worked yet, is to create a Padlet where students can post a review and then respond to it. But I haven't had any luck with Padlet sticking. And so that's probably a failure on my part, but that would be my dream, would be to create a Padlet where we're doing music reviews. I'll keep trying. And if anybody has any advice, please send it my way.
Catherine, I think the point that you just made about whether they like the song is really, really important, right? Because we never want either a song or something they read or a video clip that they watch from a movie to only be a vehicle for, you know, the study. Ultimately, a song is to be listened to and like responded to, right? Ultimately, a poem is to be read and responded to. So if it's just treated like a worksheet, then it really sort of drains that, you know, that song or the poem of its vibrancy, right? So if you do this grammar work or vocab work, that's really important. But then do you like that song or not, right? Because that's what people do when they hear a song. They talk about whether they like it or not.
Exactly. And I really like it when they tell me they don't, because it's like, okay, we're going to put that one aside and not do that anymore.
Vincent wanted to know, do students have to sign up for that website?
They do. Now, the majority of my students are on Facebook. I think I'm the only person on the planet who is no longer on Facebook, but So that's why I created just a username and a password for myself. And I always demonstrate these applications with my students in class before I assign them, so I can walk them through if they want to sign up. But yeah, it is a sign up one, unlike the first one. So there's what you were just saying, Eric, about the close. You can edit it for your own purposes, but there's some other stuff you can do with it in class. I like this prediction. There's one of the things I did with my night class is we listened to the song Hello. We'd been working on phone calls for over a month. We'd just been doing lots and lots of different activities. And then we listened to the song Hello by Adele. And then I asked them to make a prediction that the person she was calling actually picked up the phone. So what did they talk about? So the students had the opportunity, like, ooh, that could have been an interesting conversation. So they worked in pairs to try to predict what would have happened in the song had the guy picked up. We've looked at error correction. There's a ton of mistakes in a lot of pop songs. So that's a fun thing to do too, is to try to find what's wrong with the song. And also you could have them rewrite the lyrics, which I think is another fun activity. Taking it beyond, as you said, Eric, just the listening and just the grammar point. So we're halfway through and we've got 2 more to go. Any questions about lyrics training before I go to Flipgrid? Yeah, Dana.
Dana has got a question, yeah.
Dana, I think your microphone was
Muted, yeah.
off.
All right, Dana, try now.
Unmute. There.
There you go.
This is a difficult question to ask. It has to do with cultural sensitivity. I was under the impression that a lot of Muslim students are not really allowed to listen to music with lyrics, especially romantic music, unless the romantic music has to do with Allah. So how do you deal with that? Is it the type of thing that you ask the student directly or very personally, if this is in any way offensive? Have you run into that? I have quite a lot of Muslim students, so I've been shying away from lyrics, even though I think it's a fabulous resource.
That's a great question, and I'm really glad you raised it. When I first meet my students during our first week, I send them a Google Getting to Know You. And one of my questions is, do you like music? Do you listen to music? And what kind of music do you listen to? Mm-hmm. And that's my first answer as to if I'm going to be able to do this or not. Okay. And in the winter session, I had a young woman who was very involved in her church. And she told me she only listened to music from her church, to religious music, to Christian music was what she said, Christian music only. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, the rest of the class loved music and really wanted to interact. So I had a private conversation with her and I said, I'm going to be assigning some of these activities to some of your classmates. You do not need to do these. And consequently, we didn't really tackle any of that in class. It was a lot of self-study or homework work. So we didn't really get to dig into it in class with that cohort.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I think Dana, I think it's a really good point. And to circle back to a session from yesterday about getting to know your students. So Islam is like Christianity, is like Judaism is like Buddhism, right? There's so many different strands, right? And there's only some sects of Islam where that approach to music is sort of predominant. There's lots and lots of other sects of Islam where music is part of daily life, right? So we don't want to think of either, Muslims or Jews or Christians as like monolithic, right? So but you only get there by asking questions.
Right, and I'm thinking that that's a personal question you ask off in a personal email. So not before the class. That's what I'm not in front of the class.
Right.
In front of the Zoom class. Right. Okay, so that did come up for me recently when we used music, and it ended up that my Muslim student sent a playlist to everybody of his favorite songs. So it was pretty cool because I was treading lightly and the result was quite fabulous. But you never know. You never know. And I certainly would never want to insult anyone, but thank you for your time. Thanks.
Great question. Thank you for asking it. Okay, so should I move on to Flipgrid? This is actually, I think I saw earlier that Karen, Karen, are you there? Karen Cardell? If you are, unmute yourself, please.
Hi.
Hi. So it's thanks to Karen that I got to know Flipgrid, because I was explaining to her that I really needed, my students had been submitting a lot of videos to me, but I wanted an opportunity for them to respond to each other's work. And it was you, Karen, who said, hey, have you tried Flipgrid? So I just wanted to thank you, call you out here to thank you for that, because it's really worked. So, and also I'd love your input on, you know, on this part of the presentation, if you have anything to add, because you've been using it a lot more than me.
Sure.
Also, question, just I'm putting it out there. Are people using Flipgrid? I think it might be the most common of what I'm presenting today.
Yeah, Jaspreet, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Jaspreet was saying that, yeah, at Kane, using it a lot for 2 semesters for speaking classes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like I said, Karen, I owe you, because this really made a huge difference with my group. And the reason why is I'm actually just going to show you a video that 2 of my students made. We're not going to see their faces. We're just going to hear their voices. But I was so proud of what they did. So here we go. And tell me if we've optimized the sound. I hope we have.
Hello, here is our favorite food. We have a little bag of rice, chocolate, pasta, salt, fish, milk, corn oil, coffee, and flour.
These are other.
So then the other student goes to the other side of the table and he lists everything over there. Then I'm just going to fast forward. They then tell me
That side are no count nouns.
This side are count nouns.
so they've divided it themselves. They did that themselves. And then
In alphabet order are banana, carrots, chocolate, coffee.
they've put it in alphabetical order. I was just, I couldn't have been happier with the result of this Flipgrid. And then to the point of why I wanted to use Flipgrid is the response from their classmates. You know, you can respond to these videos. So they were getting responses from, wow, you guys really did a great job, or I loved how you guys divided your table. It was just, it was a wonderful, wonderful activity. So why do you think I liked it? Like, what do you think this, why was I so excited?
You can either unmute yourself or type in. So Dana is saying it's student driven.
The students are applying vocabulary and English to their own life experience.
Yeah. Their own life, their prior knowledge, their vocabulary that they know, using their imagination to apply it in their own way. And these, oh, Jaspreet, do you have something to add?
Yes, but you finish your sentence first.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it was very amazing to see my students We were using it for discussion questions a lot, and it's not just words. They could see their classmates were happy to say things, and with the expressions. So I really like Flipgrid. Even for my volunteer classes, I use it for my students, just for homework assignment. I just wanted to add this, like, it was a great resource for discussion also.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're using it and having success with it. Yeah, I've become a real convert. And Hope.
So I haven't used it. Is it basically, is it for a way for students to make videos of themselves? Is
Yeah.
that what the purpose is, I guess?
Yes, and you as a teacher you can give instructions as specific or as general as you'd like. You can make a model video that they can respond to. It's a very user-friendly site for both, I think, educators and students. And if you're working with some beginners, there's also an icon that allows students to translate your instructors to their home or to their L1 if they need that support.
Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, the other reason I really like this is the students work through a variety of steps to create the video, right? They're thinking, they're reflecting, they're writing, they're rehearsing, they're performing, they're editing. And it's a great way to go through so many different steps. And also their pronunciation. When they're making a video, they can make 10 before they press submit. They don't need to submit it right away. So they can try it as many times until they're feeling confident that that's the one they want to submit.
Hope asked in the chat if the two students were in the same place to make the video, and they were.
They were family members.
Right, but in order to do something like this, the two students would not necessarily have to be in the same place because there's now a feature. They did not used to be, but now there are features where you can reply to each other with videos. So one student would be able to make a video, a beginning video, and another student would be able to comment with a video. It just would be separate videos, but they would be in one stream. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and they can respond to each other's videos, like Karen said, either in writing or through another video. And that's, peer learning and community building. And it was Karen who actually, again, this idea of a first week introduction video. This is who I am, how you say my name, where I'm from, and something about me. So it really starts the session off on a good tone. So what else do you think could be done with this? Jaspreet was saying about having discussion questions. Anybody else using Flipgrid for anything that I haven't pointed out?
I have a few of them. I have a Flipgrid. So I'm teaching a class that's ESOL 2, basic ESOL 2, and each week we try to go through 2 chapters in the book. I believe we're in the same level, right? So for some of them, I have broken it down where I have a Flipgrid each week. And for example, we have adverbs for one of our grammar topics. So I put up, you can add a video in the beginning on the front page. So I have embedded a video of a cartoon that doesn't have words. One of the cartoons I have, the one for adverbs, is a video of a little pig named Ormy who's trying to get cookies off of a refrigerator. There's a jar of cookies on top of a refrigerator. And it's a funny cartoon where the pig is going through all of these motions. He stacks all these boxes up and tries to climb up the boxes, but then they all fall down. He straps a rocket to his back and tries to fly up there, but nothing, all of these very zany things, and nothing works. So they watch the 2-minute video, and then the assignment is that they have to try to describe what's happening in the video. And for the adverbs, they need to use 3 adverbs. And I give them a list of adverbs. You can put links in. So there's lists of adverbs, so they can look at all the adverbs and get an idea of what an adverb is. And I made an example video attached to it where I'm doing it myself, so they can get an idea of what the video should be like. And then they have to describe what they see, but add adverbs into their description.
That's great.
You can also make these things called mixtapes. And as the students reply to the videos throughout the semesters, you can add everything to that topic into a mixtape, and they start just accumulating all of their reply videos. So the students could go back now for my adverb topic and watch about 30 videos from past students, and then they can see all the different replies and get an idea of all of the students ever replying to adverbs.
That's amazing.
Nick, I think, wanted to add something.
Yeah, hi. We used this program last year for our virtual graduation, and it was really easy to send the videos out to our student speakers, whether they were graduates or nominees, and then to edit the videos together and to utilize like effects, to make it a celebratory atmosphere, despite the fact that we couldn't be together physically like we wanted to. We did the turning of the tassels and everything like that. And we're doing the same thing this year because it was so easy to use and so effective. And it was really beneficial in that way. And it was user friendly, and it wasn't something that the students had a hard time with, even those who might have been a little older or less familiar with this kind of technology. So it's kind of an intuitive thing.
Yeah, Lauren had asked a question in the chat about, students who are not tech savvy, how easy is it to use for them?
Oh, I think it's very easy. Would you agree, Karen? I mean, I think that it helps definitely to show, to demonstrate the first week or the first few times you're using it. But I did find it very intuitive, and I am not tech savvy, which is it takes me a while to figure this stuff out.
There are a couple of videos in Flipgrid that are about an hour long that go through all of the different aspects of how to make a video. And I've embedded them into the materials section on Classroom for my class so that they can watch how to make a Flipgrid video. There are also some helpful videos on YouTube that walk you through demonstrations. You want to find the newer ones because Flipgrid's changed a lot over the last year. I also wanted to state that I had a couple of issues. Over the last 2 years, I ran into a couple of issues with students that I didn't foresee. Some students don't want to record their face on camera. But you don't have to make a video. When you go open the video, before you record, there are filters where you can cover the screen with filters, like there's some that are like lined paper, and you can just write, or you can make like a smiley face instead of your face. And I think it's important to explain to your students that they can still do their assignment and just use the filters if they don't want to be on camera. And once my students found that out, they didn't tell me, they just weren't doing their assignment. And then I was just like, why aren't you doing your assignment? And then they explained that they didn't want to be recorded on camera, or they weren't allowed to be recorded on camera. But it's totally possible to just cover the screen with a filter and then just write. There's all these little filters and emojis and everything, and they can just decorate the screen instead and rate their answers.
Yeah, and to an earlier point, that would be a great question to ask in that introductory Google questionnaire. Can you, in addition to, can you keep your camera on for class, and if not, why? Can you record videos with your face? So, thank you. All right, we're coming up on, I think, getting close to the end here. So I don't want to go over because it's Friday afternoon and we've got to get to some of the sunshine. So the last application that I'm going to show you is also very user-friendly, super user-friendly, and great on a mobile phone. Games to learn English. I was pointed in the direction of this from an online teaching course at Cambridge University when I was desperate to find out how to teach online last March. Is anybody using this? Karen's, I can see Karen saying yes. It's very passive, okay? I'm gonna just begin with that. This is the least interactive of the activities, but because so many of my students are accessing the class on the phone, the games, they can't access the side-by-side fun zone just through their phone. They need a computer to do that. So I wanted to give those students an option to play a fun game on the bus or on the path as they're heading in to work. So yeah, let me begin by saying it is passive, but I've tried to make it a little bit more engaging. How do I do that? I will assign a game and send, well, actually, let me show you the game first. So this is what they look like. There's not too many of them, so it's not overwhelming for your students. There's a ton of vocabulary stuff in here, tons and tons and tons. I urge you to just go to this webpage, and I will be sending this presentation to Eric, and he can just, send it on to everybody. Going back to that topic of comparatives that I mentioned earlier in this workshop, there's a game on comparatives. All right, students, they click on the link, they click start. There's the first example sentence. All right, they play. Okay, so they have to look at the image first. I'm going to pick big.
An elephant is,
and then they have a choice.
Bigger than a mouse.
It goes through. There's many different stages to the game. I will have my students screenshot their score if I want to know how they did. Mostly, I just assign this as something to have some fun with after we've really exhausted a lot of activities within class. But I've had very good responses to it. How do I make it more engaging? Let me just wrap this. So you can assign a game and send the link, like Hope was asking earlier, via email, or if you use Google Classroom. You can create specific tasks if you want. I usually just let them do the game as it is. I find them effective enough. And what I've learned is that because there's really interesting vocabulary in some of these games, I've had students come back and say, I didn't know what a cushion was. What was a cushion? And so I have now asked them to keep track of what lexical terms they have never heard of in some of these games and keep a running list. And I will ask them to use them in sentences. I will ask them to make a Flipgrid video, telling me or showing your classmates some of the new words you learned in the game. With the one on prepositions, they can go, oh, this is the cushion. This is a book I put on the table. If we don't do a Flipgrid, they can use their phone and just make a video or an audio recording of where things are in their house that they saw in the game. So just trying to take it a step further and, like Flipgrid, have them use their context to expand the game. If I'm feeling like we need to do more grammar, following that game in class, I'll just bring up a Google Doc and bring some of the sentences up that were in the game and ask them to recall what is the preposition that goes with the sofa. And they'll work on that together with each other. So I want a few minutes for questions, but my advice to myself this year has been, when you find an app or a web page that you and your students enjoy, use it to maximize as many learning objectives as possible. And I found I need to mix it up to use it offline as well as in class. That's me, the non-expert tech ESL resources.
Yeah, thanks,
But if I can do it, I think anybody can.
Right. Well, I mean, the point that you began with that video, you know, was not getting caught up in finding the newest app, the newest website, right? But thinking about what your teaching objectives are, what your students' learning objectives are, and finding technology that helps them do that, right? And so, you know, using the 4 things that you showed, like the focus is the learning. The focus is not just the new bells and whistles that something provides. Okay. So yeah, so any other thoughts? So I've dropped the link for the PD certificate in the chat. And as Catherine said, I'll be later on, probably early next week, I'll be sending out information about where to find the videos and where to find the handouts and PowerPoints.
So no questions before we wrap it up?
People are speechless.
Okay, well, just to give you to give you homework, I wanted to just say I have put some links to some scholarly articles about why these resources are worth exploring. So there's a link to a study on ELO, lyrics training, Flipgrid. And so I urge you to take a read through those. And this is where you can find me. That's my email. And the only social media I am on is LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'd love to connect because I really think in this remote world, what I've missed the most this year is interacting with fellow educators and learning from you. So doing that on LinkedIn is something I like. So please reach out.